Hey, what's up everyone? Huei-Yuan coming to you from Cupertino, California. Today is April 26, 2020. Let's make sure that we got sound coming. Everything looks good. For the most part, I'm going to fire up over here on Instagram. Let's see, go live here. Go live there. This looks good. How's it going, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. Happy Sunday. Welcome to our weekly Sunday live stream. Today we have a special lesson on targeted timing. What is targeted timing? Let me pull up our handout for today so you can check this out. But I'm excited about today's lesson because this is a new lesson. I haven't taught this lesson before. If you're seeing this on Facebook or YouTube, you can see the handout that's available at huei-yuan.com/free lessons. That's linked in the Instagram profile, but also in the link in the description of wherever you're watching. But this is a lesson that is based off of another lesson that I saw this past week from a good buddy of mine. You guys might know him, Carl Arietta, aka Carl Drum Tech. He's running a free 8-week course right now on Facebook called 8-Week Drummer. If you just search for that on Facebook, 8-Week Drummer, 8-Week Drummer. But he did his first lesson of his 8 weeks this past week, and it was, he called it like a timing rhythm exercise. And what I thought I would do was I started with typing out the sheets for that exercise, which you can see over here in this description. But then also I started thinking about, in that course we have a lot of first time, never played drums before, which is kind of what the course is aimed at. But you also have a lot of experienced teachers and players in that group. And I started thinking about, well, how would I, adapt that exercise for the next few steps as a beginning player, or even an intermediate player, or even an advanced player. Because one of the things that I think as teachers and instructors we run into all the time is you're like, what exercises should I include in my warm-up program? And then you start getting too many exercises. There's so many to choose from. And so one of the alternatives that you can do is you can choose a core set of exercises, but then do lots of variations within the same exercise. So what I thought we would explore together in today's lesson is we look at this handout. I'll kind of give you the review or the overview of Carl's lesson of how to play this basic exercise. And then we're going to move through some of the additional variations, the first few that I would look at, and then I'll give you some additional ones that you can do on your own. And then we'll just kind of work through it together. So if that sounds good to everyone, let me know in the comments. And speaking of the comments, let us know where you're watching from. These streams have become very much about the community hang. I do my best to provide some instructional, educational, music value as we're doing this, but I've come to find that these lessons are just as much about us coming together once a week on Sundays, saying hello to each other from all over the world, and then you'll start to see some familiar faces. So just say hi to each other, let us know. Even if you're watching this on the replay, just say, hey, what's up, Huei? Coming in from Cupertino, California, or New York, or Houston, Texas, or Istanbul, wherever you're watching from, let us know. And, of course, make sure you hit that like, follow, subscribe, share button. Share this out with a friend that might find this information helpful as well. But that's really appreciated. That also lets me know that we should keep doing these streams and that you guys are finding these useful. So a lot of times people think I am the worst person to say it because I rarely subscribe and share. I try to do better about that now, especially if it's something that I really am into. It's part of just participating. That's another way to participate in the community. So with that being said, let's see if there's anything else. Let's just get into it. This is the page. If you're looking for the handout, let me just go through this because someone was asking me about this the other day. If you're looking for this handout, just go to my website. Again, that's huei-yuan.com/free lessons. And you come down, Carl's the thumbnail this week. And you can see here, and then if you click into this, then we can email you that handout. And then without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so this is today's handout. We're looking at this, and let's just come into it for a moment. I'm gonna teach it first, and then we'll look at the notation together. So sometimes the notation can get a little overwhelming if you're reading for the first time. So let me just explain what's going on, and then we'll look at the notation so you can also practice your reading as we're going through this. Okay? All right. So basically, in this first minute, I need some sticks. Okay, so we're gonna start slowly. We'll put 80 on the metronome. Okay. And I'll just play it through once so that we can see what it is, and then we'll talk through it, okay? And 1 and 2, and ready, and go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, that's one time through. Now I'm going to do a variation on Carl's explanation, which is, just like we have 8s or 16 on a hand, there's a million variations on the sun. In Carl's variation, he does it once off the right hand and then repeats it once off the left hand, and then the exercise ends. For the purpose of our exercise today, you're going to see why in just a minute. We're going to do the repeat both times off the right hand, and then as with every exercise that we learn and practice that we should do, we do it also off the left hand. Okay, so let me play through once the way that we're going to use it in today's lesson. If you're doing this from Carl's lesson, just know that you go through once on the right hand, once on the left hand, and then you end with a release on one. Okay, all right, so this is the same thing. Let's do the same tempo again, because there's a few things I want to point out about this as we're going through it. Okay, so pull out your sticks and pads if you're with me too. You can drum along as we're doing this. Okay, so 2 times through off the right hand, and then we'll do a release on 1. And 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 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 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Okay, now this exercise is interesting because I don't think I've ever necessarily practiced this. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this is something that we work on, but I don't think this is one of my rotating exercises that I've worked on. And somewhat guiltily, is that a word? Guilty? I feel a little guilty about this. I haven't taught this exercise to my students, so this is kind of my learning exercise for the week. One of the things that I've been doing for the last 3, 4, 5 weeks now is taking this period of time that we're in to learn from other instructors online, whether it's in the comments below of our own teaching videos that I've been sharing or watching other instructors teach. And this is kind of one of the exercises that I learned this week from Carl from watching him teach. And it actually makes a lot of sense because why is this exercise important? Carl's approaching this from, hey, I'm a beginner drummer, learning how to drum for the first time. And he's saying, timing is just knowing when to do what you need to do. So you're counting, you're subdividing, you're playing, and there's a few tendency things that I want to talk us through in just a moment. But also, I'm thinking to my middle school students, my high school students, my college level world-class WGI, DCI students, and there have been times where there are students who aren't able to play what they want to play exactly when they want to play it. Like they rush the end of a phrase or they come in just a little bit earlier. How many times have we been cut off because we missed the first note of a phrase, right? So this is actually something that is something that you could probably incorporate into your own personal practice time to make sure that you're not blowing the first note of every phrase. Sometimes you'll hear people call this the attack. Quick teaching tip. I try not to say the word attack, even though it is the attack of the note. If you're thinking in audio terms, the attack or the transient or the release, you might say the attack. But in musical terms, attack seems kind of like, rah. My daughter was doing like a 3 Little Pigs thing this week, and we've been making wolf masks. But the first note of a phrase is something that we can spend some time working on. And so that's what we're going to talk about today as we go through this exercise. So of course, do it off the right, do it off the left. We're going to come through. Real quick, I should also say, everyone that's coming in and saying hi, thank you so much. I see you guys. So thank you for coming to the room. And as with every Sunday stream, what's up, Nadnar Bet Rock? Finally caught your live stream. Hope all's well. Same to you, bud. Thanks. As with all our streams, we're going to do an open Q&A at the end of today. So if you want to drop questions about this targeted timing that we're talking about right now, please feel free to do so, and then we'll save a little bit of time at the very end to take open questions. So anything that you might have a question about after that as well. So let me just say some Virgilio, how's it going, guys? Harder, how you doing? Malik, hi. Marine Drummer, what's up, guys? Thank you for coming in. Thanks for just popping in. Even I know people are coming and going because this is kind of a weird time to do these lessons. It just kind of works out this way because this is when the kids are down for their nap. So hi Tristan, how's it going? Okay, let's keep going. Aya Percussion in the room, what's up? Guys, give Aya Percussion a shout out. Big announcement this week in Midwest land. SFA Percussion, congratulations to all the students and teachers in that program for being announced as one of the Midwest winners. They'll be performing in December in Chicago for the big Midwest convention. So congrats to Team SFA. Chris Hardy says, totally agree. I prefer the terminology of the front of the note versus attack. Fantastic. And Chris is as a music educator coming from a non-percussionist, soon to be or already in the progress of becoming a percussionist background. So for all the percussion teachers out there, I know that when I started to think beyond just being a percussionist and always approaching my teaching as from as broad of a musicianship, musical perspective, it's just going to help your percussionists become more and more well-rounded. So Vinny says, hello, finally caught this live. Thanks, Vinny. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you coming in. Okay, so with that being said, let's get into this first variation. Okay, so the interesting thing about this week, I have a list here that I want to, let's see, 8-week drummer. Okay, there are a bunch of things because I'm going to pull up the music first. In this 8-week drummer course, it was really cool because a lot of people submitted videos of themselves playing this little exercise that Carl made. And there were just a couple things that I wanted to mention because there were some reoccurring themes that were happening in the performance videos. So first off, thank you to everybody who shared those videos because sometimes it takes a lot to share videos of yourself and then to invite people to comment and give feedback on those videos. You know, it's always great to join a group of other instructors or players who are trying to give constructive feedback as they're doing this. I'm noticing that my phone is in the shot. Let me slide this over just a smidge. Oh, both the phones are in the shot. My setup has been all crazy this week because the kids are running in and out of the studio, so basically I had to like reset everything up at the beginning of today anyway. All right, so a couple things. The prerequisites for this lesson is you've got to do this with the metronome. Count before you start. Let's just take one at a time. Practice with the metronome because you could do it. This is so much more than like, hey, let me just learn the part and make sure that I'm counting. Like I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, or just count to 4 in cycles and then play the part. But you want to make sure that you're practicing the right part. Many videos who are performed really well, if you put it to a metronome, as with all humans, we're all humans, you find that the tempo starts to, and then most of you are probably saying speed up right now, which is true. At this tempo, most people are starting to speed up. But the answer is the tendency is for you to go back to whatever is comfortable for you. So at a slower tempo, you're probably going to want to gravitate towards a faster tempo. At faster tempos, you're probably going to want to gravitate towards a slower tempo. You're going to do whatever is easiest because, you know, as humans, we tend to be lazy. So the metronome is going to be your friend. It's going to keep you honest. You have to do this with the metronome, okay? The second thing is just a suggestion, which is to count before you start, and you want to count in such a way that it's short and succinct, okay? So for most beginning players, when I show them this exercise or we do any sort of counting in the beginning, they count like this. They go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, and it's all kind of mushy sounding like this. And I would say is you want to count, if you've seen any like DCI headcam videos and you hear the drumline counting, you're going 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very, never mind they're running around on the field, but it's very short. You want to make the length of that count shorter so it's more precise, more clear. And also I would say don't be afraid to count with inflection, right? So if I'm teaching my students or even myself, I'm going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, right? You can add a little bit of style and phrasing to your counting to make what you're playing more musical again and more on the beat. And specifically, a lot of students, I find that there are like kind of 3 categories. You have some students who start playing and then they start to feel the beat, which is a definite no-no, all right? Then you have some students who, sorry, maybe the first level is that they're not feeling the beat at all. They're just playing the part and they're just trying to play the right notes on the right hand, right? They're not feeling the beat. So then you have some students who start feeling the beat once they start playing. And then, of course, what we do as professional musicians is you're feeling the beat before you even start. The train is moving. You're running next to the train before you get on the train, right? So before you start, a great way to teach this to your students, if you find someone's not doing this naturally, is to have them count before they start. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And so often as teachers, we usually count the students in, right? So I've even done it to where I'll count and then they start counting in. So for example, I'll say, okay, 4 from me and then 4 from you. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the students will count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then they start playing, right? So it's like teaching them how to count, and then of course you can also do 8 from the Met where you don't even have to count at all. You just turn the metronome on, 4 beats from the Met, and then they start counting 2 and 3 and 4 and boom, right? So you're just kind of layering things in for them. Obviously, in a drumline setting, by the time you get to high school, nobody's counting you, and it's just 4 from the Met or 8 from the Met, or there's a tap off, right? But if you're practicing this at home, make sure you incorporate some sort of count in for yourself before you start. Even though it sounds and feels rudimentary, this is a very valuable exercise for yourself. Counting out loud is valuable. So as a teaser, as a joke, I was showing my wife Carl's video this past week, and I was like, hey, let me just try this on you real quick and see how quickly you can pick this up. And my wife is not a professional musician by trade, but she did play piano growing up, and so I taught her the lesson real fast, and I was like, hey, try it with me real quick. She's like, no, I don't want to. I was like, just do it for fun with me. She's like, okay, fine. So she does it with me, and immediately she doesn't count. She just kind of like follows and watches me. I was like, try counting out loud. And she goes, why? I don't need to. I can do it in my head. I was like, true. Yeah, you can do it in your head. But one of the things that I've picked up over the past couple weeks from watching Bill Bachman's live stream videos is he talks about counting out loud as you're playing. And Bill's spiel is like, people don't do it because it's hard and they're bad at it. But it will reveal some of the weaknesses in your playing ability. And this is something that I picked up in college from one of my teachers, Tony Edwards. He would have us count out loud as we were playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And if you can verbalize and feel that beat, maybe it's not counts, maybe you're just going right, and keeping that time. That's just another way to externalize/internalize the time as you're playing. Okay, Larry says counting is just as important as marking time. Totally, right? So obviously you're not going to count out all the time when you're playing in a performance setting, but in practice, it's a good test. If you've seen some of the past lessons, I did this strange egg beater breakdown thing that I did a couple weeks ago, and it was a little bit of a struggle for me to count 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 5 E and a, right? Because it was a structure of 5 and each one's coming out on a different partial, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But you do it a few times, and then when you stop counting, it's just going to make your counting, your timing, your pulse, all the stronger when you stop counting. Okay? All right. These are the prerequisites. The next part of the lesson is I'm going to go through the tendencies. These are the things that I noticed as people were playing this exercise. And then part 3 of the lesson is we're going to go through these new variations that we're talking about. Okay? So tendency number 1 is just actually, okay, let me talk about it this way. There's 4 levels here. 4 levels of how well you can play this exercise. So for some students, it's just like, can I play at the right time? Like I'm playing on 1 and then on 2 and then 3 and then 4 of each bar. And then we do this 2 times through because a lot of players focus. This is part of just being able to focus for, 8 bars, 16 bars, 32 bars. Eventually you need to be able to focus for 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an entire hour at a time, right? So concentration, focus, that's not something to be taken lightly, that you can learn through doing these exercises. But level 1 is just, can I do it? Can I play the right rhythm in the right part? Okay, that's level 1. Level 2 is you're paying attention to the quality of what you're playing. So your sound quality, the timing, the dynamics, are all your notes the same volume. If you're doing this at one height, you can add a crescendo to this. I mean, there's all sorts of variations you can do this. But like, are you consistently getting the same quality, the same timing across all the parts? Level 3 is accuracy. Very common tendency is to rush from 4 to 1. So basically, I'm taking notes as I'm watching people's videos from this past week. So this happened maybe more so with that sticking that Carl showed, but I think it probably would happen with the sticking as well. So when you get to the end of line 1, you'll go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And you'll hear people kind of rush. Either they'll start 4 early or they'll rush the space between 4 to 1. And it seems kind of trivial. You're like, but that's like the 0.001 cents that are getting rounded away each time. and those add up over time, right? And then, of course, in a drumline setting, obviously, if you're doing that little hiccup in time, which is very common for younger players, that's where you're going to get all sorts of timing problems, because in a more advanced setting, what'll happen is people will blow that entrance. It'll be like 1, 2, 3, boom, right? And there's a pickup, and they blow the pickup 1, 2, 3, boom. And if you can't go boom, there's no chance any of that other stuff is going to be together, right? So I can't tell you how many times, even at the world-class level, I've seen players just blow the simple stuff. And because they blew the simple stuff, then all that cool, awesome stuff, the judge is commenting on like, oh, watch 4 and 1, or watch that pickup on beat 4. They're talking about that instead of all the cool stuff that you're playing after the fact, right? So just make sure you get a good start. This is a good place for you to pay attention to not rush from beat 4 to beat 1. Okay. Think over the bar line, one long phrase. Okay, so one way that you can think of this is if we go 1 and 2 and 3, and let me just this is one of the things I've been trying to be better at during these lessons, is to show people what I'm talking about. So when we go from here and we hit this repeat, and we go over, we take the repeat. Don't think of it as a new thing. Like, oh, I'm doing the repeat now, it's a new thing. Think over the bar line, longer phrases. So this is, instead of a 4-bar phrase, think of it as one long 8-bar phrase, okay? So in this instance, if I start from bar 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and... So it's not, those bar lines are just designations within the music for us to group patterns together, right? But, you know, there are no bar lines. Jedi mind trick yourself into not seeing the bar line, so you're playing longer phrases over the bar line, and then you won't feel that need to like rush from 4 to beat 1 and cut that space down, okay? More energy and attention into prep or lift in time. Okay, so the last thing is, and this is something that I spend a lot of time working on or thinking about in solo performance, large ensemble, like orchestra, wind ensemble, chamber music, percussion ensemble, which is like you're feeling that prep stroke going to the note. So in a concert, orchestral, classical setting, I might go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And you'll say like that, bam. The energy, the intention, that is starting before you even play. One, 2, 3, and 4. In drumline, we kind of overlook that. You're just going like 1, 2, and you're trying to just like throw a dart in space. But if you spend more attention and energy into that lift, 1 E into 2 E into 3, and at this tempo, maybe you're even lifting on the and. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I think Chris actually asked a question about this before. It was like, are you lifting on the and? Are you lifting on the beat beforehand? Kind of depends on how fast you're going. At a slower tempo, you might be going 1 and 2, right? At a faster tempo, you can't go 1 and 2, right? You might have to lift on 1 and 2. So it depends, and honestly, in performance, in sight reading and practice, you don't have time to go like, beep, boop, boop, boop. This is on count 3 of the and of 4, so you need to lift on the and of 2. Like, your hands just kind of know when to play so that you're not having to spaz or jerk to get that note in time, right? But if you're self-exploring, and I'll give you an example of this. I kind of did this today when I was I've never taught this handout before. This is like a fresh handout off the press. I'm just kind of experimenting with my own teaching today. I haven't done a lot of this, hey, what is the prep for the note if I'm playing on the and? Which I know is something that bass drummers spend a lot of time doing because they're having to play on the offbeats so often. So they practice prepping on the offbeats. That's something I haven't worked on a whole lot. The only time, I was thinking about this today, I was putting together a handout, was that I've had to like really think about this, was there was this, I wish I knew the name of the piece now. I was early on in my student career, so I wasn't as aware of like titles of pieces and composers. But we played this piece in wind ensemble, and I had to play the standard part where, dun, 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 dun. Oh, I should know this piece. It's called, no, I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to call it. But I had to play these 3-stroke roughs with these unison hits with the wind ensemble, right? Band nerds out there, let me know the title of this piece if you know this, right? But it wasn't always on like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4 and I was getting to the downbeat late each time because I'd only played those 3-stroke roughs. I'd only played them on the downbeat before, right? So I had to go back and like practice going 1 and 2. I figured out it was like a 1, a 2, and so if I had to play on the and, it had to be like 1 and. Anyway, I had to work on making sure that I was prepping at the right time for those things. So this is handout that we're going to look at in just a moment is a way for you to practice maybe paying attention to that and beat. Okay, let's take some comments, some questions because I see them coming in. Can't think of a name. Hey, what's up? Thanks for coming to the room. Hi, Jason. Charles, how are you? Welcome, welcome. And Facebook and YouTube, I can see the comments coming in as well. Thank you so much. YGS says, I would say I was a former drumline percussion section captain during my high school career, and anywhere on the line cymbal to snare, I would tell everyone it's about the timing and rhythm. Yeah, timing and rhythm is going to be super key. We're not even talking about this in a sight reading context, but you're just trying to line things up vertically to start. Yes, I think so. Also, musically and expressively, we're trying to communicate the same idea. But the timing as percussionists, we pay attention to rhythm and timing the way I think wind and brass players pay attention to their intonation, right? Like it's got to be, you have to be able to play it right, meaning mathematically correct, so that you can then adjust as needed based off the style and the players around you, right? But if you don't even have the ability, and this is why we call it target timing, because I think of it as like throwing a dart or like you're a sharpshooter, you have or a surgeon, the precision of being able to just nail it. You're not going to be able to, adjust it or adjust for wind or adjust for complications in the surgery. Right? You've got to be able to do it just what is that right answer, the correct answer, so that you can then adjust depending on the style and the players around you. YGS also says, because once you get those two aspects down, then you can work on speed. But I always preach to get the part down first and then add on to it. Definitely. If you watched our stream from last week, we talked about, practice habits 2.0. And before you start to speed things up, you have to be able to do it correctly at a slower tempo first, for sure. Hi, Jill. Welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Okay. So we're on level 3. And then the last thing about level 4 before we jump into this handout, level 4 is just about consistency. We talk about this a lot, and it was kind of mentioned in the comment beforehand, which is a lot of times students will do something, and once they get it, like they're sitting on level 1, like, I got it. And level 2 is like, I'm thinking about my time and my dynamics, my sound quality. And level 3 is maybe even thinking about like, okay, yeah, I'm accurate, I'm doing it, right? And they do it like perfect one time. But then you go to that pro level, right, where it doesn't matter what time of day it is, if it's the first rep or the 10th rep or the 100th rep, you're still doing it perfect every single time. And you have to be able to execute on a dime. And that's why the pros get paid the big bucks and play like the pros, is because like every single rep that they do is as if it's, the 100th repetition, and they're just it's just nails every single time. Dre's in the room right now. I share this anecdote quite a bit with my students, which is, before Dre was my inside snare when we marched Cavaliers together in 02 and 03. And we had this like ritual that we would do before every run through, regardless if it was an actual show or if we were in a cornfield in the middle of nowhere. Before the run, we would look at each other and say, "This is finals," right? Because every run we did as if it was finals night. So by the time we got to finals night, it was no different than any other run we had done beforehand, right? So part of your consistency piece is, if you're preparing for an audition, you have to be able to nail that part when you're in a room by yourself 100 times, so that when you get to the audition and you feel nervous and they throw a variation at you and you're standing in a weird place and you feel uncomfortable and everybody's watching you, you can still execute on dime so that you don't choke. Another good friend of mine, Michael, who's a clarinet teacher, he talks a lot about not choking with his students, right? So if you don't want to choke, you've got to be consistent and do it right a billion times in a row, okay? Hey, Christian, welcome to the stream. Okay, that is the spiel for today, so hopefully that will influence some of your practice. Let's get into the handout now. And those of you guys who are coming in and still chiming in, if you're just coming in, let us know where you're watching from. We're going to take through each line now, and I'll kind of walk us through. So once you're able to do that pretty accurately, I want to share just some of the ideas of how we could probably start to expand this if we were practicing this, okay? So based off of our timing, the line 1 in this handout shows you where the release is, because especially for the beginning drummers, they're not sure how to do the release bit. But you'll see that in the rest of the handout, I don't notate that last measure of the release. Is this still coming through? It's getting to that point where it gets a little laggy because it's getting warm over here. You can probably see me getting warm. Where is this? Where we go? There we go. Okay, so in this part, come on down here, you're going to play this line twice, and we're going to do it both times off the right hand, and then we'll do release, this imaginary release that you see up here. It'll do that for every line, or you could just do it continuous all the time if you wanted to, right? But that release is not notated for each line, just for the beginners who are watching out there, okay? And for time's sake, we're just going to do this off the right hand for now, okay? So now, same exercise. This is an example of how you can take the same thing that we're doing, and you're just putting it on a different partial of the beat, okay? And for some people who are like, oh, this is easy. This is just the ground floor. I caught a little bit of a live stream with Steve Gadd just like yesterday or the day before, and he was talking about how he's playing all of the standard rudiments that he's really familiar with, whether it's like a flam radimacue or a paradiddle diddle, and he's just displacing it on the beat. He's, instead of playing it on the downbeat, he's playing it on the and. Similar to my 3-stroke rough example that I gave earlier. So in this instance, we're just playing a single note. It's the same exercise, but we're just playing on the and of each beat. Okay, let's try that. I'm going to bump the tempo just a little bit for time's sake. Let's go to 92 on the Met. Okay, so 4 from the Met. We'll count ourselves in for 4. Then we're going to place each note on the and. See if you can count out loud as you're doing this with me. Okay, here we go. Counting out loud. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Again. Ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Oh, my bad. So I blew it. So the thing that I was thinking about was the way that you would prep this. If this was on the downbeat, if you're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, I would probably, it's weird. It's not like a full prep right on beat 1. But if you're in a bass line, you probably would define where you're prepping this, right? So in this example, you might be prepping on the and before you play 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's late. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's the and of 3 still feels a little bit like you're having to wait too long. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. A prep right on 4 feels a little bit rushed. So at this tempo 92, it's kind of in that no man's land where it's kind of weird, right? So you'd have to experiment about what timing-wise is going to work for you. And then if you're doing this in a drumline setting where uniformity is such a big deal, you'll just have to define what it is, whether it's a half count prep or a full count prep to place it in time. Okay, all right, let's do it one more time. 2 times through. Let's try it off the left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, so you're being real particular about the beat, and we're moving through this a little bit quickly, but you're trying to also land smack in the middle of the beat. You're trying to bury the metronome. So if you record yourself, you'll see that maybe you're landing just a little bit ahead or a little bit behind the waveform of the metronome that's clicking, and that's just part of being the consistent piece, right? You're trying to make sure that you can hit it right on the beat as you're doing this. Okay, Christian Miller says, when I was in Pitt in my high school, I was extremely tedious when there would be a part of the show where we would have it perfectly at a slower tempo, but we'd still repeat it 20 times. Absolutely. But when we got to the actual tempo, it was still pretty clean. Yeah, you've got to invest more time up front on those correct reps so that when you get to the actual show part, you're not freaking out that you can't do it. Okay? All right. Do that. And guys, I'm doing only like 1 or 2 examples of this, but you could do this for much longer to work on that consistency piece. Okay. Let's go ahead to the next line. And I went back and forth about this. I thought, like, do I do the 8th notes first, or do I just do the isolated notes? And I opted to do just the isolated notes. Oh no, computers freak out. It's getting too hot. Well, let me select this. Okay. We're looking at this next line. Take a second, just look at it on your own for a moment. I'm going to pop a window open over here because it's getting too warm in this room. It's not best for sound purposes when I pop the window open. I usually have a fan blowing here when I'm working because the sun is coming down right over here at the end of the day. So it's like, this is literally the warmest time. I might just need to move the time of these lessons because it's caused my computer to freak out. Okay, here we start to introduce natural sticking, or we've talked to the students about natural sticking at some point, but this is a good way for them to practice this. And you're playing 2 notes. This seems basic and rudimentary, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen advanced players blow 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. And they rush, they go 4 and 1. So this is just another way for us to practice. It's something that we're very familiar with. Targeted timing. So you're seeing me go boom, boom. It's just a surgeon, scalpel, sharpshooter, just ultra precision as we're doing this. Okay? All right, let's try this. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Right? And what I'm listening for right there is so often people go 4 and 1 and they rush to that beat. They might even play 4 and in time and then just play 1 a little bit early. They might accelerando through the entire rhythm, but you're listening for 2, 3, 4 and 1. And part of this is also just knowing your tendency. At a slower tempo, you're going to want to rush. At faster tempos, you're going to want to be slow on that entrance. So just be aware of your tendency. And if you over adjust, like I might be going 2, 3, 4, I'm holding back intentionally so I don't rush, and I'm a little bit late, no problem, I'll fix it the next time, but at least I'm not doing the obvious tendency there. Okay, here we go. One more time, off the left, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. It also helps for me to hear the rhythm. Bum, 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 bum. I'm like singing the rhythm I'm about to play. So in my head I might hear 1 and 2 and dun, 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 dun. So I'm hearing 4 and on 3 and, so it's not a surprise when I actually play it on 4 and. That's another strategy you can also try. Proghead says, video is frozen. Try exiting the stream, then join again. Christian Miller. Thanks, guys. Yeah, this is what happens when it gets too warm. So this is going to be a bit of a process. We'll see if we can get it to work once. It's just getting too hot. So I'm plugging this here. I'll plug this back in. The camera should show back up. Let me come up over here. This was a temporary fix last time. It just gets too warm. My computer is flipping out and saying, dude, what are you doing? I might need to get one of those like something like a special cooling thing that maybe my machine can sit on. No, see, it's frozen again. This might be my cue, guys. Might not be able to keep going. I think it's just too hot. My computer's flipping out. So we might have to cut the stream short on Facebook and YouTube today if I can't get this to chill out. It was better for a second. Yeah, it's just too hot. It's getting warm over here. Okay, we'll try one more time. Come down over here. Bada bada boom. Bada boo. Bada ba. Bada boo. Okay. Maybe. Alright, let's move quickly. Time is the enemy right now. Let's see if we can get through this. I'm sweating my butt off over here. Okay, let's keep going. Alright, same drill as line 2, but now we're doing the same rhythm on the and. So and 2, and 4. And again, this is one of those rhythms that I just see a lot of beginning players and even advanced players. When you're not careful, you have a tendency to blow that, right? So let's try that. I'll try it. I was going to not do the screen share because it tends to blow things up, but let's give it a shot. Okay, here we go. This is line 4. If you've downloaded the handout and you're following along, if you're on the screen, just check it out here. Left, right. Okay, here we go. Count yourself in. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Oh, okay. So this is something I was thinking about when I was making this handout. So at the end of this line, because there's a downbeat into 3 and 4 and 1, the turnaround is going to be 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. So you just have 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Okay, try that again. Here we go. 1 and 2 and ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay. Let's see if I can pull this down. Let's do the same thing. Actually, you would do the same thing off the right. For time's sake, we're going to keep going. Is this making sense, guys? Guys and gals? Why is this? Oh, because I turned it off. Bada bum. Bada boo. Bada bee. And bada ba. There we go. Alright. Still here? Alright. Let's try this. I'm curious if there's going to be a little bit of a lag between the audio and the video, but let's keep going. We're in this next line. So same principle as the first one, but now we're starting to substitute basic 16th note, 3-note timing principles, because this is like something that just like is coming in all the time, right? So we're doing this. It's the precision of being able to play right on the beat and to play the release on 2. Okay, and we're moving across, we're gridding it through on beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4. Okay, let's read it. We'll try it through together. Let me highlight this so we're all clear what line we're looking at. It's doing its thing where it wants to highlight more than what I'm doing. Come on, man, work with me. No, okay, we're playing this line. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1. 4, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3. 4 and 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3. 4, 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1. Okay, So consistency, you can tell, like, if you record yourself, you're going to hear that you might be a little bit early on one, a little bit late. The rhythm might be opening up a little bit too much. You might be condensing the rhythm a little bit too much. But this is one of the things where you could do with the metronome. You could turn on some of your favorite music and practice along to it. But your ability to be accurate and your targeting, you're going, you're able to just nail it right on the beat. That's something that we could all be working on. Okay? All right, let's try the next one. Same deal, but we're just trying it with a different rhythm. 1 and a 2. I started with these two because these are the two most common rhythms that we'll see with beginner players. 1 and or 3 and. All right, here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. So I want to point out that when I played it that first time through, I got just a little bit ahead on 4 and a 1 and a 2. Okay, so let's just isolate that for a moment. 1, 2. Again, go. 1, 2, 3. So musically, you might want to just move forward a little bit there. Use a little bit of that momentum to push the phrase forward, but don't do it because you're not being careful or you're not being aware of it, right? Use it as an expressive tool if you want to, but here we're practicing just like, can I play it with straight time? 2, 3. So I feel like I need to stretch that and open it up. Right? Do a few of those till it feels really good, and then you go back into context and see if you can put it all the way through. One more time. Ready, go. Beginning, 1 and a 2. Right, so I'm not counting out loud because I want everyone to be able to hear the metronome the same way that I'm playing, but in my head I'm going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and as articulate and clearly as I can. Christian has a suggestion. Christian says, one thing you can do, and is what I do a lot to increase my single stroke rolls along with other things, is just to do eighth notes on your right hand, and then after a while it'll be easier to fill in. Yeah, in the space with your left hand to get that rhythm. Yeah, that's a fantastic example, Christian. So Christian might be doing, because we practiced this exercise a bunch, right? Fill in another beat. Another beat. Yeah, that's another great way you could practice that. The advantage of that is you've got that right hand flow to work through. But the thing that we're kind of working with this exercise is you have a lot of space, right? And you know, it's like kids, if they have a lot of time in their hands, they're going to get into trouble. So if you have a lot of space, you're going to get in trouble of like having to come back in. That's kind of what we're working on in this instance. So this is one way of just making it a little bit more challenging, because every piece starts with, you have to get everyone to start together, right? And then when you stop playing, you have that challenge every time you come back in. Okay, let's go on to the next one. 2 more, and then we will jump into some open Q&A if my computer will allow it. Okay, so we have 1 a 2. Count yourself in. 1, 2, 3, and a 4, and. Okay, let's stop there for a second. I noticed on beat 3, I was a little bit late. 1, 2. I got to beat 4 just a smidge late. 1, 2, and. So this is an example where I don't always hear the rhythm I'm about to play. In this instance, I would hear 2 and really clearly in my head here. 1, zump, bum. So then I make sure I just come in on beat 3, and then when I get to 3, I'm just executing that rhythm and making sure I land on beat 4. 1, jump, bump, ba-rum, bum. Really pay attention to the prep on 2. Right? So isolating, landing right on the beat, playing an accurate rhythm, releasing right on the beat. This is not like a super fun, sexy exercise that where I'm going like, oh yeah, man, I'm practicing. Right? This is just nitty gritty, grueling. I'm practicing my ability to just execute the rhythm that I'm trying to play when I want to play it. And I'm scrutinizing every single note that I'm playing timing wise so that I don't need to when it's time to perform. I've done all this legwork beforehand by myself in a room so that I'm not stressing about rushing the ends of phrases or beginning of phrases or being able to come in when I want to in a rehearsal or performance setting. Okay? All right. Practice that off the left hand so we have da, 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 da. Left, right, right, left as well, which might be a little bit difficult for some people who haven't done it before. Let's try that off the left. 1, 2, ready, go. 4, 1, 2. And then right there, notice that it's going to be right hand flow. So it goes, when you have beat 4 and beat 1, ba, 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 your right hand just goes. So you can use that right hand flow that Christian was talking about earlier on that beat. 1, 2, 3. Utilize that to your advantage. That's an example of where you can use your knowledge of the mechanics to help you with your execution. Okay? All right, practice that. If you botch that, that might be a fun one for you to practice for a little bit. And notice that we're doing this all at 92. You're going to have different tendencies at every tempo. 92, 100. And one thing for the 8-week drummer groups members that I've mentioned now, like some people did it, obviously for the purposes of the video, you did it at maybe 1 slow tempo, 1 fast tempo. I would encourage you to do this through 8-beat increments because you're going to find that you're going to be able to do it better at some tempos than others. I'll give you an example. With my egg beater example breakdown that I did a couple weeks ago, when I got to the 100 to 120 range, it got weird for me. And then for some reason, it got easier when you got out of the 120. So I kind of zeroed in and practiced that 100 to 120 range. I could do it from 80 and at 88 and 94, but then for some reason when I got into like 100, 104, 108, 112, it just got weird. And then when I got out of 120, it was okay again, right? So you've got to go through your due diligence, make a chart for yourself, go through each of the tempos. And for some of these tempos, you're going to have an easier or harder time than others, okay? All right, last one, E and a 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, E and a 2, 3 and 4. Do it again. Ready, go. 1 E and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2, E and a 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. E and a 2 and 3 and 4. E and a 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, E and a 1. Right? So you notice that first one, I was a little bit not perfect. It was like A minus. It's the right rhythm. It's right, not perfect. And just chip away at this, right? So eventually, even when you're operating at like 95% or 90%, your B plus is still most people's A or even A plus, right? That's your goal. And then eventually your goal is just to be firing at your A plus every time, no matter what. Okay? Okay. Any questions? There's like a lot of people just watching and hanging out. I'm sure everyone maybe, in a perfect world, everyone's got their sticks. They're just playing. I'm stuck on double strokes. Okay, let's work on that. Ask me your question, Lillian. I can kind of talk you through double strokes here. Practice all of this off the right hand, off the left hand. Use these variations to kind of check yourself. Again, this is a free download that's available right now. If you want to go to huei-yuan.com/free lessons, you can download this handout. And we're running out of time over here on Instagram. So for everyone that is in the room at the moment, who's been participating so far, thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, that's linked in my Instagram profile if you want, down here below, over here, huei-yuan.com/free lessons. If you want to download that handout, it's free, and you can share it out with your friends. Okay, let's take a couple questions today, and then we'll call it. It is cooling down. I need to maybe just open this window. I keep it closed for sound purposes because you can hear the in the fan, but it's better than getting cooked in here. Or maybe I just change the time of these lessons. But okay, Danny says, what kind of innovative percussion sticks? These are the FSBK ones, the Brett Coons. These are like my go-to sticks. I've also been using the Paul Lennox lately, just to play around with also. I like these as well. But the BK ones are usually my go-tos. Okay, Devin, what's up, man? Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Step on double strokes. Honey Bun says, what made me want to become a drummer? Oh, that's a deep question. I should do like an Ask Me Anything AMA. I've been thinking about that for a while. And that's one of the questions I get sometimes is like, how did I even end up here? I ask myself that question all the time. But I joined band as most kids do in middle school. And well, there are two parts of the story. So I remember my middle school band director, Greg Dick. Shout out to Greg Dick if you happen to be watching this. He's actually retiring this year. After an illustrious career of being a music educator. But he came to my school and he played an amazing like snare drum solo. I was like, whoa, percussion is so awesome. And then when I went in for like the band fitting, I had a piano background and my hands were a little bit bigger, and one of the options also was like bassoon. And he said something to my mom where it's like, we only take like 2 or 3 bassoons every year. And she's like, oh, that's really unique, then you'll be a bassoon player. I was like, okay. And long story short, my older brother happened to be home from college when we were going for our instrument pickups, and he's like, what instrument are you playing? I was like, bassoon. He's like, no, dude, you don't want to play bassoon. And I was like, why not? He's like, you want to play percussion. I was like, why? And he's like, because percussionists are the coolest. So, no offense to all my bassoon friends out there, but he's like, yeah, you want to play percussion. So we went to school, talked to my band director. He gave me like a little test to make sure that I could clap rhythms back to him and feel a beat and syncopate 1 and 2 and 3 and I started playing percussion, and so I just kind of didn't stop. It was always a hobby, and then when I got into college, I started out as an engineering major. I was actually in college for engineering scholarship, and then I was still playing in the marching band, still playing in like the concert band in the spring, and I realized that I couldn't, like, playing percussion, teaching music is the thing that I can do all day, every day, because I just love doing it. And engineering, math, physics, I can do it, but that is not the thing that feeds my soul. It's the thing that like kills my soul. So I made kind of a leap of faith and jumped into doing music. Maybe I should do like a whole YouTube video on this at some point, but that's kind of what got me down this path, and haven't looked back ever since. Lex says, I've been working on 2 of the Pratt solos this past month, but I have a hard time bringing them up to speed. Any recommendations? Yes, great question, Lex. The first thing I would say is just be patient, because learning something is going to be different depending on where you're at and the thing that you're trying to achieve. Okay, so let's say we're always playing music that, not always, sometimes you're playing music that's where you're at, sometimes it's a little bit easier than where you're at, and sometimes it's a little bit advanced. If you're growing and learning, you're reaching for something that's a little bit beyond your level, right? Now, if it's this far beyond your level, maybe it'll take you 2, 3, 4 weeks to get there. If it's this far beyond your level, it might take you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks to get there, right? So the first thing I would say is just be patient with yourself and give yourself time. My biggest recommendation is to just pick a tempo that you can play the entire solo through all the way without breaking and without feeling stress as you're playing. And if it's literally like this slow, right? Really slow. Once you can play the entire thing all the way through without breaking, then gradually start to slow up in those 4 or 8 beat increments over time. And if your hands aren't getting confused as you speed up, that means you've done enough of that legwork up front. I would say, Lex, check out the lesson from last week, Practice Habits 2.0, and a lot of the things that we talk about in that lesson will apply to you. Okay. Instagram, we're about to end over here. So thanks again for tuning in today. YouTube and Facebook. We'll keep going for just a couple more minutes. Devin says, love the Beetle pads. Yep. Shout out to our friends at Beetle Percussion. And favorite hybrid rudiment and your favorite way to incorporate it. A favorite hybrid rudiment? I don't have like a definite favorite hybrid rudiment. I will say the two that I've been playing the most lately is this egg beater breakdown, because we did a lesson over it. Those were fun. And then I've stumbled across this thing that I'm calling Scooby-Doo's for now, but it's 4 notes in the right hand with the flam in the left hand. And you can also accent the left side. There's a lick on my Instagram that you can check out where I'm playing those in this lick that we wrote. But check it out. All right, Instagram, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next Sunday, hopefully. Shoot me a message if I can help. Have a good Sunday. Bye, guys. Okay. And that is our Instagram stream. We'll take a few more questions from YouTube and Facebook if we have them. If not, no worries. We can just end here today as well. And, of course, the video's frozen. How long has it been frozen? Are you serious? Killing me over here, guys. For the computer nerds out there, if you have like a thing that I can be hooking my computer up to, maybe I need to hook up. Maybe I need to hook up. So right now my webcam is running through my dongle. And I think what I might need to try is just hooking it up straight into USB-C into my computer. I wonder if it's the dongle that's causing it to freak out because the dongle is getting too hot. Because the webcam is still working on my built-in computer. I don't know. Okay. Christian says it froze again. Thanks, Christian. Okay, there we go. All right, we got one more question coming up here. My computer's acting weird too. I think it's just getting too warm. Okay. Lex, I hope that helps with your question. Prague Head 88 says, how do you ensure you have the perfect height for the tempo without getting into the habit of pushing extra volume with your wrists instead of more height? In other words, how do you remain balanced at a certain height volume without putting too much effort and without being too loose? Okay. There's a couple things with that. So you're saying, if I'm understanding this correctly, and then correct me if I'm wrong, Prague, is like sometimes you might be playing the right height, but you're actually putting more energy into the stroke, so it's causing it to be louder, but you're actually at the same height instead of, say, like getting higher with the same relaxed stroke that you're kind of striving for. So there's two parts to this that I would suggest. Number one is it's all about your warm-up, practice, exercise routine. You know, I was watching this live stream where it was like a panel of people talking about their warm-up routine, and some people were saying like, oh, I use stick control, I use this, and those are all great exercises, but I think of my warm-up as like very distinctive layers that I'm working my way through as I'm playing, right? So the first exercise that almost every percussionist that I know that starts with is some sort of legato, just to make sure everything is working, right? And some people go straight into stick control. So they're jumping right into their doubles and their singles, but I think if you're at anywhere in the middles to high school, college phase, and even me, I start with this. If I'm short for time, I might just kill two birds with one stone and jump into some double strokes or double stops. You're teaching your hands to stay consistent regardless of the height, right? So I'm not having to tell my hands like, hey, don't play harder when you're at that lower tempo, because I've kind of just trained my hands to feel the same way all the time, or try to get the same sound. On the flip side of this, I'm always listening as a musician I'm always listening to make sure that I'm getting the sound that I'm expecting to hear, right? I always have an expectation in my head of like, what is the sound that I'm trying to get? And if I'm not getting that sound because all of a sudden I'm playing down here, but it sounds harsh, or like I'm playing too hard, I'm squeezing, then the sound, which is the answer, is going to tell me like, oh, hey, you're doing something weird. Maybe the part is more difficult, or I'm not comfortable because I haven't really learned it that well yet, or I'm trying to go too fast too soon. Something is causing me to change the sound. So my ears are going to cue me that that doesn't sound the way I want it to sound. Video recording yourself is going to be huge, and also using a mirror, because you can also see maybe in the stroke. Like you might not be able to tell in the moment, but if you video record yourself and you watch back, you can say like, oh, that doesn't look the way that I feel when I'm playing. And because you're kind of an objective party now, you can watch and you can hear that like, oh, that's not happening, right? So in this example podcast, let's say, I think you said with like a specific part, without getting into the habit of pushing extra volume with your wrist instead of more height, ensure you have a perfect height for the tempo without getting. So let's say you're playing something that's you suspect that you're changing on. Let's say you're playing a double beat exercise. And you suspect, as you're saying, pushing extra volume with your wrist, you might be overplaying a little bit. Okay, so there's a couple things. I think it'll sound louder. It might start to look a little rigid. Right, and those are two things. Or your hands might start hurting, or you might see some tension in the stroke. Those are all things that might cue like, oh, you're doing a little bit too much. You can also check yourself by playing something that you know you're doing correctly. And your goal is trying to make that double beat exercise feel the same as your legato eighths exercise. And if you can transfer that relaxation from the thing that's easier to the thing that's harder, then that's a good way of checking yourself as you're doing it. That's a really good question, Prague, that comes up quite often. So, Christian says, do you have any tips on how to sight read either snare or marimba? Yes, because I got first chair in all county, congrats, and all region. I got an all-state callback, and at the audition, I did everything else fine. But I messed up on the sight reading, which is what caused me to not make it. Sorry, Christian. Okay, so I know that's tough, but the good news is that's a good learning opportunity for you. And like just the other day, I was talking to my buddy Dre about sight reading and what he does to teach his students. I actually wrote down notes on what he said. Let me see if I can find him real quick, because I'll share with you what he told me. But I've got like my spiel that I tell people about sight reading as well. Okay, so Dre talks about doing lots of repetitions. Okay, let me give you my spiel first, because I know my spiel really well, and I'll supplement with the things that Dre was telling me, because I did pick up a few nuggets from him as well. So the first thing I tell all my students is sight reading is a skill. I used to think that you could either sight read or you couldn't, but the thing is, you just need to do a lot of it if you want to get better at it, right? Your ability to recognize patterns or recognize rhythm, like when I see degadap on the page, my hands don't have to think like, wait, is that the 8th note, and wait, is that the 16th rest? Or if I see 1E, I'm not going, okay, the first note's a 16th note, the second note's an 8th note, and then there's a, wait, and then there's a 6th, is that a, you're not having to figure out the counts, you just recognize the patterns, right? So your ability to recall what the rhythm is and then have your hands just play it immediately, that's the first step, is just recognizing rhythms. So you need to do a lot of sight reading. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. You could spend the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes of your practice session each time doing a little bit of sight reading, and then you'll just find that you'll get better at it over time the more you do it. The second thing is, one strategy that you can do is, if you take something that's really simple, like if you took a whole page of rhythms, right? You could even take the handout from today, for example. At a risk of blowing up our stream, I'm going to pull it up here. I'm going to see if I can do this. Okay. If I put the metronome on a really fast tempo, okay, so now we're not working on precision necessarily. I'm working on just looking ahead of where I'm playing. Okay, and one way you can teach yourself how to do this is to take something that's fairly simple or sparse, right? take something out of a basic eighth note timing book, right? And I'm talking like 180 fast. 180 metronome. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me turn this down just a little bit. I'm going to go just a smidge faster because there's a lot of space in this. I'm talking about something where it's like 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1. All right, let's try going 200 for a second. I'm going to play the page straight down, no repeats. I'm just going to try to look ahead of what I'm actually playing. Okay, 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, no repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right, and you're going through, and the key thing here is that you're trying to look ahead of what you're actually playing. If you're driving a car, you're not looking down at where you're at. You're looking down the road ahead of what you're about to do. I have a post on my Instagram page, probably like 5 or 6 posts ago, where there's like a red box of a lick that I played, and in that Instagram description I talk about how I'm actually looking 2-3 beats ahead of what I'm actually playing in that moment. So you can force yourself just to look ahead of where you're playing as you're sight reading. And then some variations 3 times in a row. Dre's main thing was just like doing lots of reps. It's kind of the same thing, which is like, the more reps you do, the better you'll get at practicing sight reading. And he talked about that simple rhythm faster. When I was in college, my teacher would have me play out of the Podemski snare drum book, Podemski, Podemski snare drum book, but we would play them at really fast tempos, like 200. So you're having to look, and it was in cut time, so you're having to look 2, 3, sometimes 4 bars. Eventually, as a musician, you'll just be able to look at an entire line and scan. Like when I look at the music now, I can just scan the first line, the second line, and I see that it's the same pattern twice, right? If you can recognize like, oh, it's the same bar twice, then your eyes are already ahead looking at the third bar while you're playing the first 2 bars. Okay? Hope that helps. Oh, and the same thing for mallets. It's about just being able to recognize the notes very quickly. It's pattern recognition. The faster you can recognize the pattern, the easier it will get. Christian says, so just look at a bunch of different rhythms and get familiar with them so that you can just immediately recognize them and play them. Yeah, like there's only so many combinations, right? There's only, for 3 notes, it's 1 en, it's those 4 that we have on the page here, 1 en, 1 enda, 1 ea, and e enda. For 2 note, 16 note times, it's either 1 e, e end, enda, or 1 and then for 1 note 16 note times, it's either 1 e, and Like there's a finite number of rhythms. Now, where it starts to get interesting is when you start combining them in different combinations, and what you'll start to do is instead of like looking at notes beat by beat, like when you first start to read, you're sounding out every letter, right? Like my daughter's 4.5 now. When she's sounding her words out, she's going k, cat, cat, and she sounds it out, right? So when you first start, you might be going like 1 e and 2 and 3 e and 4. 1 e and 2 and 3 e and 4. Right? That's like the analogy of like sounding out things beat by beat. But as an adult or as a more seasoned musician, you'll just look at that whole bar and just go. You'll just recognize that whole thing as being one thing. So now you're looking at it 1 bar at a time, or maybe you're looking at 2 bars at once, or maybe you're looking at 4 measures at once as being one big thing. And you'll just start to recognize more combinations, right? If you've ever tried to read out loud for the first time, it's kind of challenging, right? If you have to read in front of a class, I remember having to do this in elementary school, and everyone was just terrible at it, myself included. I remember my sister-in-law doing a project when I was probably like in 6th or 7th grade, and she had to do this exercise where she was like testing kids. She's an elementary school teacher, And she had me do this experiment where I had to read a paragraph of Tale of Two Cities. Oh, no, I think it was Great Expectations. Read a paragraph of it, and I was shocked at how stuttery and, just I couldn't pronounce some of the words, and I was not good at it, right? And I made a point of saying, like, oh, why am I so bad? When I read it in my mind, it's not a big deal. I can just read it. But when I had to read it out loud, I was stumbling all over the place and sounding words out, and it wasn't very good. And so kind of, we were like, oh, I need to work on that. So same thing with this. If you're playing these parts, you might be able to read it, but the more you start kind of playing them out loud, the easier and the better you're going to get at it. Okay? All right, guys. Great questions, Christian. Really, really good. Let me know if your progress on that, how that goes. Okay? Proghead88 says, it's like any language, read enough to not have to stop to recognize the word. Great example, Prog. Thanks for chiming that in as well. All right, guys, I'm going to end here for today. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's lesson. If you're interested in this handout, let me see if I can pull it up here. Just go to huei-yuan.com/free lessons over here, and you can pull up this handout from today, which is over there. And then please send me a message if I can help. Send a direct message out. Like, follow, subscribe, and then share this out with anyone else that you think might find this helpful. And I hope to see you guys in next Sunday's lesson. All right, be safe. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.